Again, we're taking part in a series of catecheses called Healing the World, and today's theme is subsidiarity and the virtue of hope.
Cari fratelli e sorelle, sembra che il tempo
Dear brothers and sisters, it seems that the weather isn't very well, but I'm going to say good morning all the same. Everybody has, or many people have gotten their umbrellas out. It's drizzling.
Per uscire migliori da una crisi come quella attuale,
To emerge better from a crisis like the current one, which is a health crisis, and is at the same time a social, political, and economic one, every one of us is called to assume responsibility for our own part, that is, to share responsibility.
dobbiamo rispondere non solo come persone singole, ma anche a partire dal nostro gruppo di appartenenza.
We must respond not only as individual people, but also from the groups to which we belong, out of the roles we have in society, from our principles, and if we are believers, from our faith in God. Often, however, many people cannot participate in the reconstruction of the common good because they are marginalized, they are excluded, they are ignored.
Non riescono a contribuirvi perché soffocati economicamente.
Certain social groups
o politicamente.
do not succeed in making a contribution because they are economically or socially suffocated. In some societies, many people are not free to express their own faith and their own values, their own ideas. If they express them freely, they go to jail. Elsewhere, especially in the Western world, many people repress their own ethical or religious convictions. But this is no way to emerge from the crisis, or at least to emerge from it better. We'll emerge from it worse. So that we might be able to participate in the healing and regeneration of our peoples, it is only right that everyone should have the adequate resources to do so. After the Great Economic Depression of 1929, Pope Pius XI explained how important the principle of subsidiarity was. This principle has a double movement, from top to bottom and from bottom to top. Perhaps we don't understand what this means, but it's a social principle that makes us more united. I'll try to explain it.
Quando I singoli individui, le famiglie, le piccole associazioni o le comunità locali.
On the one hand, and above all, in moments of change, when single individuals, families, small associations, and local communities are not capable of achieving primary objectives, it is then right that the highest levels of society, such as the state, should intervene to provide the necessary resources to progress. For example, because of the coronavirus lockdown, many people, families, and economic entities found themselves and still find themselves in serious trouble. Thus, public institutions are trying to help through appropriate interventions. Social, economic, and health, these are the areas they need to help in. On the other hand, however, society's leaders must respect and promote the intermediate or lower levels. In fact, the contribution of individuals, of families, of associations, of businesses, or every intermediary body, and even of the church, is decisive. All of these, with their own cultural, religious, economic resources, or civil participation, revitalize and reinforce society. That is, there's a collaboration from top to bottom, from the state to the people, and from the bottom to the top, from the people's institutions to the top. And this is how the principle of subsidiarity works. Everyone needs to have the possibility of assuming their own responsibility in the process of healing the society of which they are a part. When a project is launched that directly or indirectly touches certain social groups, these groups cannot be left out from participating. For example, what are you doing? Oh, I'm going to work for the poor. Oh, that's beautiful. And what do you do? I teach the poor and I tell them what they need to do. No, that's not right. The first step is to allow the poor person to tell you how they live and what they need. Allow all of them to speak. And thus, the principle of subsidiarity works. We cannot leave these people out of the process of participating. Their wisdom, the wisdom of the most humble groups, cannot be set aside. Unfortunately, this injustice happens often in those places where huge economic and geopolitical interests are concentrated, such as, for example, certain extractive activities in some areas of the planet. The voices of the indigenous peoples, their culture, and world visions are not taken into consideration. Today, this lack of respect of the principle of subsidiarity has spread like a virus. Let's think of the grand financial assistance measures enacted by states. The largest financial companies are listened to rather than the people or the ones who really move the economy. Multinational companies are listened to more than social movements. In normal terms, we listen to the strong rather than the weak. And this is not the path to take. It's not the human path. It's not the human way. It's not the way Jesus showed us. And this certainly is not putting into practice the principle of subsidiarity. Thus, we do not permit people to be agents in their own redemption. There's a collective there's a certain consciousness of governments or social leaders moving toward the people, but not with the people. Going from the top to the bottom, but without listening to the wisdom of the people, without allowing this wisdom to act in resolving problems. In this case, in resolving the problems related to the crisis. Or let's think about the cure for the virus. The large pharmaceutical companies are listened to more than the healthcare workers employed on the front lines in hospitals or in refuge camps. This is not a good path. Everybody needs to be listened to. Everybody. Those who are at the top and those who are at the bottom. Everyone. To emerge better from a crisis, the principle of subsidiarity must be enacted, respecting the autonomy and the capacity to take initiative that everybody has, especially the least. All the parts of the body are necessary, as St. Paul says. We've heard that those parts that seem the weakest and least important, in reality, are the most necessary. In light of this image, we can say that the principle of subsidiarity allows everyone to assume his or her own role for the healing and destiny of society. Implementing the principle of subsidiarity gives hope to a healthier and more just future. Let's construct this future together, aspiring to greater things and broaden our horizons and ideals, either together or it won't work. Either we work together to emerge from the crisis at every level of society, or we will never emerge. It doesn't work. It won't work. Emerging from the crisis doesn't mean to varnish over the situation so that it might seem a little more just. No. Emerging from the crisis means changing. And true change, we need to do together. Everybody. Integrating the people who form the persons who form the people, all professions, and everyone together, everybody in community. If everyone doesn't do it, the results will be negative. In a previous catechesis, we saw how solidarity this time, is the way out of the crisis. It unites us and allows us to find solid proposals. The path of solidarity needs subsidiarity. Well, someone can say, "Oh, Father, you're talking about difficult things." Well, I'm going to try to explain. We need to be in solidarity because we're going along the way of subsidiarity. In fact, there is no solidarity without social participation, without the contribution of intermediary bodies, without the contribution of families, without the contribution of associations, without the contribution of cooperatives, of small businesses, and other expressions of society. Everybody needs to contribute. Everybody. This type of participation helps to prevent and to correct certain negative aspects of globalization and the actions of states, just as it is happening regarding the healing of people affected by the pandemic. These contributions from the bottom should be encouraged. And how beautiful it is to see. This is just an example. To see the work of volunteers during the crisis, the volunteers who come from every parts of society, volunteers who come from more well-off families, some coming from the poorer families, but everybody together in order to get out of the crisis. This is solidarity. And this is the principle of subsidiarity. During the lockdown, the spontaneous gesture of applauding for doctors and nurses began. Applause for doctors and nurses as a sign of encouragement and hope.
hanno rischiato la vita.
Many of them risked their lives, and many gave their lives. Let's extend this applause to every member of the social body, to everybody, for their precious contribution, no matter how small. Well, what can you do? Well, listen and give space to work. Consult. Let's applaud. Let's applaud those who are cast aside, those who society qualifies as needing to be thrown away. Let's applaud the elderly, children, persons with disability. Let's applaud workers, all those who dedicate themselves to service. Everybody collaborating to emerge from the crisis. But let's not stop only at applauding. Hope is audacious, and so let's encourage ourselves to dream big. Oh, brothers and sisters, let's learn to dream big. Let's not be afraid of dreaming big. Seeking the ideals of justice and social love that are born of hope. Let's not try to reconstruct the past. The past is past. New things are waiting for us. The promise of the Lord is that I will make all things new. Let's encourage each other to dream big, seeking these ideals. Let's not try to reconstruct the past, above all the past that was unjust and already ill, which I've already named as injustices. Let's construct a future where the local and global dimensions mutually enrich each other, each one giving what it has. Everyone has to give what he or she has of his culture, out of his philosophy, out of his or her way of thinking, where the beauty and the wealth of smaller groups, even of groups that are cast aside, might flourish, and where those who have more dedicate themselves to service and give more to those who have less. Thank you.